Um, and that's how I started. And then in about 1996, that was 1991, 1996, got a phone call from my friend from Chicago who brought some Moldavian wines to the United States, and he couldn't sell them. And he asked me to help, and I said, "You're crazy. In California, Napa Valley, I would sell some Moldavian wines." But friend is friend. You can't say no to friend. And we brought a pallet of Moldavian wines. It was a fun time. It was a dessert and semi-sweet wines. And one of these people who is part of this meeting, Brian, knows exactly how we went through this and what we did, because he was an ambassador of Moldavian wines in the United States. And you can ask him, he would totally say Kagor and Isabella and Lydia and etc. Yeah, it was fun days. But in about 5 years, basically, one day my daughter came from Russian store and they were rude to her or whatever. And she said, "I'm not going there anymore." And, while those Moldavian wines were bought by our generation, parents' generation for nostalgic factors, I knew that when this generation is gone, I'm going to have to drink this Moldavian wine myself, maybe with my daughters. So I decided to switch the direction to more like mainstream products. And that's where I fell in love with single malt Scotch whiskey, and we started there. So basically that's the story. Nothing.
You didn't just fall in love with single malt Scottish whiskey. You fell in love with smoky whiskey, because that seems to be your biggest portfolio is the smokier Isla type whiskeys.
Actually, when I started with the person by the name of Ed Cole, who at that point represented Signatory and Edderdour, I did not like Isla whiskeys. My go-to would be Lowlands and Speysides. And that took a couple of years. And I was not understanding why, out of all my portfolio, the Colilas and Lagavulins and Ardbegs would be so much in demand and so much better sellers. There we go.
My favorite Lowland.
Yep.
Favorite Lowland ever. Actually, maybe one of my favorite. It's in the top 3 favorite whiskeys I've ever had.
So, and I see Doug has some Kilchoman there as well, if I'm not mistaken, right? Anyways, it took me a little bit, but once you get there, as you know, can't go back. Isla is I like all the whiskeys, but Isla is my camp.
Nice. Dan, I'm gonna unmute you, Dan, because Dan also, I was gonna try and incorporate Dan into some of the questions here in the conversation, because and for those that don't know, I've been friends with Dan now. It's been about 7 years, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Dan's the reason I got to meet you, Sam, and it was funny. I was very intimidated because, look, I'm just a guy who loves whiskey, and Dan's introducing me to this guy who owns these companies and who, I know it sounds weird, but you're larger than the average person for me. I was a little intimidated, and when I got to your table, and I think there was a turning point in the table when we went to the tasting where you saw that I wasn't just there to get drunk, and you saw that I was really trying to figure out all your whiskeys, that you just kind of became just a normal average human. That's why I love you. Dan's one of the nicest guys in the industry, in my opinion. Now you're real. You're a real person, right?
Yeah, real, yeah. Nice.
So,
nice on the outside. What goes in here?
Yeah, well, maybe. That's with all of us. So, all right, Dan, what kind of things did you want to quiz your boss on?
I don't know. I'm sorry I missed it. I just got back from chasing some people, so it took me a little bit longer. I don't know how deep down the rabbit hole you went, but it sounds like you asked him how did he start.
That's it.
You didn't like any of my questions yesterday.
I didn't know. No, I just didn't want you to ask about the weird cheese ball question.
Why not,
Don't
man?
ask me for race, though. Please don't ask me for the race. Just
No. All right. No. I mean, I don't know. I mean, so obviously we kind of dug a little bit into how you started. I mean, you're definitely a true American dream for sure. Coming with your family by your side, having a little bit in your pocket, kind of building all that up. So I assume we already went over that, right? Kind of like how he got to where he's at, or how he came to the U.S.
Basically, yes.
All right, beautiful. So I guess one of my questions, Sam, for you would be, obviously, like you said, you see millions of products all the time. What is one product that you probably said, nah, I really don't want to do that, and then someone else took it on, and you're like, shit, I missed that opportunity. I mean, what are kind of some of those missed boats that you've gone back that you wish you could basically retrace or make a different decision?
Sure, good question. As for those who don't know, I also run the company in California, the distribution company called JVS. And one of the buyers, one of the big chain buyers called me once, and that was, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe more. And Sam, I got a good brand for you to carry. And I said, Susan, she was a buyer for K&L Wine Merchants, if anyone's familiar with us. I said, what's the name of the brand? She goes, it's called High West. I said, nah, I have Stranahans now, and what Jazz Grabber is going to say, think about me. It's, no, Susan. It's okay. So that's the one I regret big time.
Right. Beautiful. And I mean, if Jared and Brian, you guys have any questions you want to jump in on? Because like I said, I wrote a whole bunch of really weird questions. Just fun. And Adrian was like, no, you're not asking that.
Okay. No, there's plenty of good questions. I think that's a great question. What's the one brand or one whiskey that you took on that you find to be your biggest success?
It's difficult to say because all the brands, and we have a very small portfolio, trying to keep it very small and manageable, are my kids. So it's like discriminating one kid person and another wouldn't be my style. It's probably one of the questions that I won't answer.
That's a good answer. By the way, this and unfortunately, this is one of the problems. I wish I could have, like, we're just doing this off the cuff, and this all came about in less than a week. Sam was like, "Do you want me to send samples?" And I said, "I will always accept your samples because your whiskey's amazing, but we were no way we can get it out to all the people that are going to be on this call." And this one right here is the one I'm trying right now, which is the Ben Nevins 23-year-old. It's 52.7%. That is a fabulous whiskey. That is just excellent. Now when you're talking to these reps, like, are you able to sample and how much influence do you have on their whiskeys that they bring out?
Well, Fergus, knowing your taste, I kind of figured out that you would love this Ben Nevis. It's a sherry cask matured. It's been there since day one. It's for 23 years. I like Ben Nevis. I barely remember one single cask Ben Nevis that I didn't like, but this one was a little bit special to us. And the reason it was special because we used to carry exclusive malts for about 6 years, the bottle that you showed. And this is actually the one of the bottles that you bought at this or liked at this show that Dan connected us was, I believe, 26 years old Cameron Bridge. Wasn't it the one that? Yeah.
5-year-old.
Okay, there we go. So first of all, I want to thank Dan for this great connection. I've never seen people in the industry and outside the industry that love life so much as this guy. Every day I wake up and think, how does he handle this C19? Because I probably can imagine him being not surrounded by people. So Dan, thank you very much for that. And also, Fergus, I remember you brought some whiskeys from Compass Box. I believe it was something exclusive. Yes, Robin, I'm not going to let you fall asleep. No. Don't even think about it. You got some Irish whiskey. It was some German whiskey.
Castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good start. Anyways, the selection process. What we do with single malts of Scotland. So exclusive malts are gone. If anyone doesn't know about that, it's we had it here for 6 years, and then it was bought by a big company in China, some kind of club of Chinese businessmen. They bought the whole brand and the juice or the casks. So whatever you see now out of exclusive malts, it becomes a little bit kind of a Port Talents of independent bottlers. So, but good folk from Elixir Distillers, which is a brand of Sukhinder Singh from Whiskey Exchange, approached us and said that we have another independent bottler that it's been very well known in Europe, but never touched the US, and that was Single Malts of Scotland. So this Ben Nevis is the first run that we just brought into the United States. The process goes like this. First, Oliver Chilton selects the casks, and he would select at least 2 sister casks, and then he would give it to us, and Dan and Brian and Jared, all 3 are here, and other people out of IMPEX team would blindly taste this and select the one that we think is better representation of the distillery, is better than another one. So that's how we came up with this 10 casks that we just brought in. And even in this slow period of C19, 75% of it is sold. So this particular cask, 23 years old, was rated 90 points by Serge Valentin from Whiskey Fan, which is 90 points from Serge is a big deal. The cask that we declined was bottled by Europe, and that's got 89 points. So looks like the guys that are tasting it, and I trust the palates, they're doing their job.
I can say that I have had a hard time ever. I don't think I've found any whiskey that I haven't liked of yours. That's the amazing part. Now, and I'm going to kill the name because I always kill the name. That Kilchoman. Kilchoman. So, what's your relationship there? Because that seems to be. Is that your biggest brand?
It's one of our brands that we brought in first in 2010, and since then we've been an exclusive U.S. importer of Kilchoman. Small distillery, opened in 2005, the first one to be opened there for the last 124 years on Isla, and remains the only independent distillery. The rest of them are bought by big guys, Diageo and Pinot Ricard and Remy and Santorian, etc. There's one more distillery now, 9th distillery, that is being producing, but their whiskeys are still aging. It's family run. It's very important to me because I treat the IMPEX family as family. The guys still have their jobs. They still get paid, and I'm very proud of it. It's not their fault that COVID knocked on the door. So family to family. And, we have a greatest relation with Anthony. He understands the needs. He understands the 3-tier system. He understands the 25% tariffs. And since the tariffs were implemented on October 15th, I believe, 2019, we split the tariffs and we never pass it on to the customers. So we actually absorb the tariffs and keeping the same price up until today.
That's exceptional, and I value that because I think in this world where you hear all of the negatives about big business and how people handle their business, it's nice to see a company that actually thinks about those type of things. I mean, there's a lot of companies that would never even care about that. They just want to make sure they get their brand out so they can make their money and then move on. Because I'm good friends with Dan, I'm so happy he works for you and works with you, because like, I know that he's in good hands. I know that as long as he does right with you, you'll always do right for him. That's actually a special part of, I think that's part of why you're, so the 3DC is all about friendship. And so my belief is that you fit into that same mold of personality where you're just a good person that tries to do right. So Penderin, what's your relationship there, and where do you see that brand going now that it's starting to really expand and grow?
Sure. So we started with a Scotch whiskey, and we kind of were bringing the Scotch whiskey into our portfolio for the first 3 years of being the importers. And then at some point, I saw whiskeys from India. I saw whiskeys from Ireland, beautiful whiskeys, whiskeys from Taiwan. And I'm thinking to myself, why not? Let's just start, increasing the varietals, because it looks like these guys know what they're doing. And, Scotch is great, but so basically I turned into kind of a world whiskey. And the guys from Penderian approached us over 2 years before we actually said yes. And the reason for it was, there was another company, a big company, who was carrying Penderian in the US. And, they were too big for this brand, or this brand was too small for them. And Penderian decided to change the direction in the US. My problem was that they were releasing whiskeys at 41%. And I wanted to be at least 43. Majority of our whiskeys are 46 and up, 46, 48, 50, 55, and cask strength. But they would not change it because their belief was that the whiskey tastes best at 41%. So I was back and forth, few meetings in New York and San Francisco. Then we went to UK, and I decided just to go and to visit the distillery. And I took my 3 associates, I believe, or 4 at that time. We just went there just out of curiosity. About 3 weeks after, we got a phone call from Stephen Davis, who is the owner of the distillery. One of the owners said, "Okay, Sam, you got me, 43%, you have it." So that's how it started. Then first big competition, the Masters of Distillers, I believe it's called. We submitted all 3 expressions at 43%. They all got gold. So that was a convincing point for the ownership that ABV, higher ABV, it's what we needed in the United States, and it didn't affect in a negative way the results of the competition. Since then, we now have 8 different expressions, and we started bringing single cask expressions. So they're very happy with us. We launched it in June of 2018. We probably sold about 4 containers of it now. So we're very happy with the brand. They're happy with the brand.
Now, going to your opinion on AB about the alcohol content, it almost seems that it is. I've never seen one of the brands that you rep do 40%. You almost always do 43 and up. What drives you to believe that just that tick of extra alcohol makes the flavor better?
Well, yes, you're right. We don't have anything at 40, and most likely we won't. We have 43% Wonder Blends, I Love Sky, and we have the Dragon series for Penderian 43. The rest is 46 and up. And the reason is, we spent a lot of time and, tastings and educational programs and trainings for people to understand what unchilled filter is. We believe you won't find any of our whiskeys that are, colored artificially or chill filtered or added anything that is not just pure nature. So we all know that at 46, sometimes going to 43, the whiskey becomes cloudy. So then you need to chill filter it. And that's what we don't do. So we basically stop our bottling at higher proof. We also give the consumer a chance to taste it like this and then maybe add a few drops of water if they like, because there's enough room to bring it to the level they like. But, you know, the major thing of it is to save all the, you know, oils and esters that are in a whiskey without stripping it. And then when you do it through the chill filtration, you also lose the color. So then you add the artificial color for whiskey to look, you know, nice and old. We don't do that either. So that's the major reason. Plus, the U.S. consumer likes, you know, as you get educated, as you get more into going from just Johnny Walker Blue, which is bottled at 40%, to something more unique and niche and you know, limited, you want a little bit more or higher proof.
So Doug asked a question about how you got into the Belgian whiskey. That what introduced you to that, and I'm going to add to it and ask, are you seeing other? And this kind of goes to what Robin was talking about. Robin said that one of his fun new adventures is finding beer makers that are now trying to produce whiskey. Do you find other beer makers that are making whiskey that you're interested in that you want to bring on? And again, how'd you go with a Belgian beer company who makes whiskey?
Well, first of all, Robin, you know, I want to thank C19 because then I had the chance to read your book from the beginning to the end. So thank you for that. I was not looking for Belgian whiskey. We actually, at the point when people approach us and 99% of what they offer to us is being rejected. Not because they have a bad product, it's because I want to make sure that our portfolio is manageable enough and small enough for us to have 100% attention to each brand. 4 of our whiskeys or distilleries that we bring in from were consulted by Jim Swan, who unfortunately passed away like 3 years ago. And Golden Corollas, I was familiar with the beer. Actually, this brewery runs from 1471, one of the oldest breweries found by monks, which a lot of other breweries in Belgium, and not only in Belgium, in Czech Republic, were found by monks. But this one was very interesting for me to take a look at, and because there was the first single malt producing this brewery / distillery, and the way they handle the business, the way they approach, when it comes to the quality, really intrigued me. So we started the conversation, and then they sent the samples, and I loved them. And I thought that's going to be a great, addition to our portfolio. We visited the distillery about 3 months ago or so, and it just confirmed that there was. So you talked about Kilchoman, who is producing now 480,000 liters of pure alcohol, which is one of the smallest producing distilleries in Scotland, where Colilla produces about 6.5 million liters. So 480 liters. Golden Corollas produces 35 liters. Wow. It's just a drop in the ocean. But what they do, it's just amazing. The program, the wood program, the mash, they use one of their beers called Triple, and they use this mash for distilling this whiskey, and because it has more barley than regular lager. I mean, it's the combination of spirit and the wood program really makes this whiskey unique and not like any others.
were you able to actually sit down and do side-by-side tastings of the beer and the whiskey to kind of get, because one of the things I get from this is at a certain point in time, I love Belgian beers. Belgian beers are my favorite beers, and that's why, like, like as soon as you announced that this was coming, I was like, I want one. I wanted to be the first bottle in America that was my goal. I didn't quite make it, but when I drank this, it was funny because it's whiskey, obviously, but then there's that point where you go, oh, there's the Belgian beer taste. Were you able to sit down and taste that and see the comparison?
Yes, I was. And I was looking for this connection between the beer and the single malt, because as you know, you can make single malt from any beer. You just do the beer mash, and then you have a choice. Either you add some hops and you brew the beer, or you just take it through a distillation process. And people think there's some hops in this beer, in a single malt, which is not true. I never argue, because people say, oh, I feel this, this beer, whatever you feel, it's in your glass, and I love it, as long as you love it. But there's something there that makes you think that there's a brewery involved. There's some, and I'm still trying to figure out. More than that, now they have in Europe, it's illegal in the United States, where they have the infused beer. So they put the spirit into the beer. And that's where you get this kind of a symphony of all the flavors that you're looking for, the hops and a nice cereal feel and the Christmas cake. It's beautiful. And that's a creation of Hans Rubin, who is a brand ambassador for Golden Corrals. So yeah, there's a knowledge there, Fergus, for sure.
Outstanding. Again, thank you for coming on in. I personally will be a disciple of yours and always push your brands, because I think you're just a good person. Now, I think Dan unmuted himself, so he has a question to ask. I can see him now.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously IMPEX is, really heavily whiskey company. And we always hear about certain trends, like it's been rum for, I don't know, since I was at Diageo in 2008, it was like, rum's going to be the next thing. Rum's going to be the next big thing. But in your mind, what do you think is going to be the next big category? And, how do you foresee your company jumping into that?
Sure, that's great. Great question, Dan. I know we've been hearing the rum every year would be the spirit of the year. And I still think rum is a big deal. But I have a feeling those COVID-19 will change the direction or open different avenues to things. Right before that, what's the name of this drink that's very popular nowadays? It's, what's the name of it?
White Claw?
No, different one. Anyways, I think world whiskey will continue booming in terms of category, but I'm not sure what rum. I think rum is going to be big. There's one more drink that now everyone drinks. The young people drink. It's like something seltzer. That's the one. Oh, that's the one. Hard seltzer. That's what I think we need to look into. So if you haven't sold any soda or something like that, be prepared, my friend.
All right. That'll be interesting, because I mean it is becoming a very saturated market, of course. If that's a decision you decide to do, I mean, obviously I support you on that, but just make sure it's something that we have a good story for, that sets us apart from, any other malt that's out there, any other kind of vodka based or vodka based, if you want to, seltzer that's available. So let's see here. We say White Claw. There you go. That's it. We're taking over White Claw.
Jared was about to jump in and say something.
Don't you dare, Sam. Don't you dare.
To be clear, I wasn't suggesting that IMPEX does that. I was just stating.
Hey,
I appreciate the fact that you look at your
years ago, I said I don't want to sell vodka.
I got an idea.
Seltzer.
Yeah. How about vanilla vodka?
No.
Vanilla?
No.
No. It's got to be split
Oh.
tea. If not, I'm
If you
not
want
doing
me
it.
to quit, just start importing vodka, man. I'll be gone real quick.
How about birthday cake vodka?
There we
No,
go, Matthew.
Yeah.
no gummy bears, no Coca-Cola, no Mountain Dew, none of that.
No, it's like I remember when we went to Pandaren and they were asking about, hey, how come we're not bringing in a vodka? I was like, that's cool. How much money you want to lose? So
Yeah.
if you want to lose money, I'm happy to do whatever you want. But just realize it's going to be a loss leader, and whatever we made in the whiskey is going to be definitely loss times 5 in the vodka.
Well, there's a secret, Dan. There's a secret. You want to know how to make $1 million in vodka? Start with 4 million. Start with 4 million.
Oh.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of category, I know this group is pretty much Irish whiskey oriented. So,
Yeah.
there's and I know you.
Well, but understand this, Sam, is the realities are this group is kind of like, if you actually look at all the people that are here, there's 5 or 6 of us that are 3DC. Ted just joined us. He's from Tennessee. He's Scotch. Obviously, Robin. Jared's here. Brian. Those are people that have come in just because of you. And the realities are, yes, we love Irish, but we love all whiskeys, and we try to stay diverse in what we like. So
Yes, yeah. Well, I've got Douglas, Whiskeys of the World, that the name says itself. And of course, Ted is a huge supporter of our portfolio in Knoxville. And I see some new faces, which is great. Thank you for that. And of course, when you talk about Kilhoman, when I said that when I started, it took me 2 years to get into Isla Whiskeys. Jared started pulling his hair from his head. And Brian I've known for over 20 years, right? So it's a small world, and it's 25 now. Sorry, 25. Trying to hide our age there, Brian. But it's a small world, and the spirits world is even smaller. I do want to give you a little bit of run of 2 distilleries that I came across from Ireland, because I know that your heart, Fergus, is in Irish whiskey, and you're a huge supporter of this category. There's one distillery called Waterford. I guess heard of it. It's about 4.5 years, 5 years now since they opened, and they're using the local farmers' grain to produce their whiskeys. A very interesting concept and interesting thing that they do, like from grass to glass. We were offered to import this whiskey, but we decided to let it go because the price was too high. In my opinion, there's another whiskey producer in Ireland called Power Squirt. Again, and if you guys heard of it or not, they started in 2018. That's a great concept. The guy used to work for Cooley, and then he brought a few expressions like 14 and 18 years old, but also he is a master distiller. That's Power Squirt Distillery. And they're going to be probably on the market, not through us again, because I thought it was too expensive. But speaking of trend, I think we're going to, if you remember 2006, 2007, after this big collapse of economy, we started seeing some whiskeys for $200, $300 on the shelf. And people were buying it. So I think that's the trend of after COVID time, when you're going to see some high tag whiskeys there, and people will be buying that. They're not going to be sitting and collecting dust. That's what we hope being in this industry, but that's something that everyone needs to be prepared to. And I think there will be people after this COVID that would be willing to spend some more money.
Well, I know you posted a link to a whiskey, and I don't recall what it was. It was a 30-year-old. So what?
We brought Glenrothes and Imperial 30 years old. If you're talking about the last.
Imperial, yes. The yes. How? Okay, so it's a quiet distillery, right?
It's a closed distillery, yeah. Highland Distillery, closed distillery. They closed in 1990.
How did you get a hold of that?
Well, again, dealing with Elixir distillers, Single Malt Scotland is a brand of Sukhinder Singh, who is probably one of the top whiskey collectors. And I had the pleasure and honor to visit his whiskey collection room a few times. And it's fantastic, it's amazing. But he has some good connections. He's got this brand called Porter's Cake, and every label that you see Porter's Cake, thank you, Robin, would be from Islay. And as a matter of fact, he's now building a distillery on Islay called Porter's Cake. Porter's Cake is just a brand, there's no distillery, but now they're building the distillery. And he has this connections to all these distilleries, and they starting the independent bottling. Officially, it started in 2010, I believe, but they were buying some casks when they were 3, 4, 5 years old and left them at the distilleries. And because of his connections, he's able to get a hold of a few. I think he had a bulk of 25 casks of Imperial. And we had the luxury of actually selecting one that we thought was better than another one. So it's a history. Every drop of this whiskey that we drink, and I encourage for you to drink it, not to collect it, makes this whiskey less and less in the world.
I want to tell you right now, I've been, this is my third bottle that I've opened, and it's almost done of this Cameron Bridge. I think I have another bottle. I don't remember anymore. I hope I have another bottle, because it is God's Elixir, one of the best whiskeys I've ever had in my life. I was telling people here before you came on that I open every single bottle. Right now there's 3 bottles on my collection that I won't open for anyone. I'll open them for specific people, and if you're there with them, you'll obviously. And then once I open it, I don't care. I don't care who drinks it. I believe that's part of it. I think it's part of the family, and I think it's one of the things I like about Dan. I like about everyone here. Robin has shown up now to every single one of our little virtual tastings. He's just good soul, right? We look for good soul. Now, I have one question, not for you, but for your daughter. I'm putting you on the hook, and which is, what's it like to have kind of this situation where you have a dad that's in the industry, he's involved in all of these things, you get to go to the events and the parties and whatnot, and one, how do you cope with all the people that come to him and kind of want to know him, want to see him, and are you going to take over when he retires?
Whoa, loaded question. You just slipped it in there after the first one. I'll start with the easy one. So you know how growing up people are like embarrassed of their parents or whatever? Like I never had that luxury because all my friends liked my parents probably more than they liked me. I think they were just around me for them. So since I was, a teenager, all of my friends, especially the guys, they just want to like chat it up with him and learn about whiskey and try to impress him with, knowledge and all that. So that's just been kind of like a mainstay in my life. It's not something new. I think what most people just don't know about him is that, you mentioned the larger than life figure. A lot of people come and want to talk and all that, but like he actually remembers every individual person in the conversation he had with them. Like it's crazy. The age statement, all those details. So, it feels like this whirlwind when it's at a show, a trade show or a tasting. But when he goes home, he doesn't turn it off. Like he's still thinking about all that stuff and who he wants to follow up with. And so, I think for a lot of people, it's like you have your professional life and your private life. For my dad, it's really one and the same because this is his whole, it's his passion. Second question, what was that again? I think I forgot.
You're taking it over. You don't want to forget.
You're taking over. Like, I mean, I know he's still a young man, and he's just it's going to be a while. But is it something that you want to take over? Is it something you would like to get into?
I think I'm in it by default. I think like I'm always going to be involved because it's, I saw it built from the ground up. So it's not even I don't really see it as a business. Like it's our family. We make a lot of I wouldn't say like decisions together or something, but he really brings it into our family as just, you know, another kind of everyday thing. So, you know, I would say I would always love to be involved, at least as much as I am today and more. But, you know, my like actual career is in something completely different, and it would be doing a disservice to just kind of like be involved when I don't have the knowledge yet, or the education. So if I were to pursue it, I would take it super seriously and like actually go 100% into it and not just dabble, if that makes sense.
It's a polite way to say no. And also the short version of her long answer would be,
Sorry, I will shut up once you get me talking.
no, it's good, is that she's embarrassed because her dad has two wives, her mom and my business. So she's in a little bit different or difficult situation.
It's a very, well, and I can imagine how it's overwhelming, right? Because if I met you at an event, right, at Whiskey Fest, and there's plenty of people that pull on you, and I that's actually a good segue to this question is, like, is it kind of hard? Like I pull on you a lot, you know, Sam. I consider you and I consider you a friend. I consider you a really good friend, even though we haven't known each other that long. And I always try and respect that friendship. But do you find it's difficult and stressful to have so many people pull on you and so many people want to have time with you?
You know, the C-19, you know, had a big impact on all of us, because I know every face I see that I know here on the screen and I don't know, I can see they're open people, they're outgoing people, people who live because we communicate. And I'm not an exception. I mean, thank God we have this kind of a, you know, technology now that at least we can do that, but nothing will substitute a handshake and a hug, having a dram and face-to-face. So all I want to say, it's like, you know, this is going to be behind us and we will be coming back to our normal life, that, you know, our oxygen that we cannot live without is our communication to each other face-to-face. Just we need to be patient and we'll be fine. I totally 100% positive on this and confident.
I kind of want to open it up to anyone else. You guys can unmute yourselves. If there's anyone that wants to ask a question, my little boy Finn.
So cute.
But if there's anyone else that wants to talk, you know, ask a question, go for it.
So what is Sam pouring right now?
Oh,
Putting the golden Corollas.
yes.
See, 46%, bottled in bourbon casks, and then they recask it in their own casks called Anchor, which is a cask that come from, it's European oak, from Bordeaux, France, red wine, and they just STR it as Dr. Jim Swan recommended. So they shave, taste, and rechar them. And the second half of its life, this whiskey is spent in this Anchor cask, which gives you this nice spiciness. It's really unique whiskey. Sometimes I do tastings. Well, that was pre-COVID-19. I can put 7, 8 whiskeys from Scotland, from Japan, Ireland, Wales. This one always has some special place in people's heart. They would try it and they would say, wow, never tried that before. So that's what Slanche. And to all of you guys.
Sure.
Solange Valles.
So Sam, what would be your favorite accessible whiskey? Like, I mean, there's good high-end stuff, obviously, but what would be your, of the stuff that you carry, what would you recommend to people as a good, accessible whiskey?
Well, Adam, Good question. Any whiskey is accessible as long as you have two things. A, you taste it and you want to put it back in your mouth. That's my kind of, deal on this. And can I afford it? If I can match those two things, that's my accessible whiskey. We're talking about Penderyn. If you never tried it, I would recommend the Legend. It's a kind of gateway to Penderyn. It's very easygoing, made by 3 people, and all 3 are women, which, whether we like it or not, but they have better nose and better taste. And these 3 women are talented people that are behind this brand. So Penderyn Legend, bourbon cask matured and then finished in the ex-bourbon. Yeah, that's the one, Brian. Yep. And if you go to peaty smoky category, I would recommend something, well, being biased would be Kilchoman Michael Bay. Very accessible. It's the highest ppm. It's the same ppm as that beer, 50 to 55. But the way they distill and ferment and, cut and what bourbon cask they use makes it very soft and approachable. It doesn't come and shake you like here I am. So that's pretty accessible to start with. It's a good gateway to any Islay whiskey. But honestly, if you pour any whiskey, whether it's a Dewars and Johnny Walker, and I have a good company around, that's my whiskey.
One of the things I would say is he doesn't rep really. I mean, yes, okay, this right here, it's a 44-year-old. It's expensive, but actually, as a 44-year-old, it's not expensive. The Cameron Bridge, which is one of the best whiskeys I've ever had, really actually very reasonably priced. The Belgian whiskey, that's $50, $55. So you actually have a great price range. You have a price range that goes from, I would assume, I don't think there's anything less than $50, but for the most part, it's $50 on up. But the on up is stuff that you're talking about. It's very special bottlings. Most of your standard brands aren't that expensive, are they?
Well, Fergus, great question. The most difficult part of me being the U.S. importer of the brands is to convince my suppliers that we in the United States need to be treated a little bit differently. We have this 3-tier system, which all of my suppliers hate because they have to actually cut their ex-works the way that the final price on the shelf is consistent with the rest of the world. And that's the biggest fight and biggest challenge that I have. And they hate me for that, but that's my job. That's what I do. And we do have some blended whiskey that is under $30, which was basically what I do. I just figure out the price point on the shelf and go back from there and kind of make them sharpen their pencils the way that it meets the shelf and the reasonable price. Yeah, the $55 to $65 range is where all majority of my Penderyns, Golden Corollas, Kilchomans are. And this is kind of everyday. And then you go to a luxury segment that goes all the way to $20,000 a bottle. So, yeah. What happened? Yeah, so we're trying to make the range of tastes and also budgets the way that it kind of satisfies everyone. I was not kidding about $20,000. I have one. We used to carry Temdu, as a lot of people know, and they had a release of 50 years old cask of Temdu that only out of sherry barrel only produced about 100 bottles. And this is $20,000 a bottle. So I have one that I decided to leave as a memory of Temdu in my collection and open it at some very special occasion. I got a phone call today of one of my customers that wanted to buy it. And I said, okay, all right, let's do it. Then he comes back to me saying the customer thinks that because of the, difficult times that we're, living, can he get some kind of discount? And first, I was thinking, we must be in the wrong business. I tell this guy, the store owner, I said, the guy's buying $20,000 bottle of whiskey, and he's complaining on difficult. And I said, you know what? Actually, I wanted to leave this bottle for myself. So let's use that as an excuse to say no to him. So.
Yeah. You didn't buy it at a discount. You're not selling it at a discount.
Good point. Yep. Good point.
I'm still waiting for my sample of that, though, Sam. It never showed up.
Jared, I appreciate your patience. It's going to be rewarded.
I think you tried to sell me a bottle of that, Sam. You when it first came out, you came out with the price on it and all that. Said, Ted, I think this is something you need.
Yeah, if anyone in Knoxville could afford it, that'd be you. So who else I would pitch? Of course.
Okay, my one question is going to be, and you know what my question is always going to be, when are we going to get some of this stuff in Knoxville? Like the single malts of Scotland, like Single Cask Nation. We need to get that here. It's beautiful stuff. Well, I haven't tried the single malts of Scotland yet, but I'm on Dan's case about trying to get that in down here. So we shall see what's going on. And Brian will tell you that if we get it down here, we'll have tastings at my house, if no place else.
Well, Ted, I'm going to send you the email address for this guy. His name is, I think, Dan Pate or Dan Pate. I don't remember what's the name, how to pronounce it, but I'll send you the information.
Pate, Sam.
Pate. Thank you, Jared.
I've got him on speed dial, trust me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have this conversation all the time. Come on, Ted. So, like I said, my distributor that I was going to sign it to got ran over by the tornado, unfortunately. That happened not too long ago in Nashville. And then, of course, with COVID-19 hit right behind it. So, unfortunately with Tennessee, we got to make sure with the right people. So, because
I understand.
once you sign it, that's it.
And Jared, we need your stuff in here too. You've got to come out with some beautiful stuff. That canvas, 26 year was fantastic.
My stuff's always available as long as the postal service is still shipping.
Dan, by the way, remind me, I'll send some samples of single malt of Scotland to Ted.
You sent me a box already. I don't know what's in it. I haven't checked yet.
That's
so, with the
whole
COVID thing, I had to sit in quarantine for 2 weeks. I don't know.
You guys were having a tasting on the 25th, I think, out in California, and I talked to one of your gentlemen, and I was trying to get it, and then I got an email or a text from him today saying, they sold out everything.
Sold out, yeah. So that's single malts of Scotland that one of the stores in Sacramento runs, Rocco. But I'm going to let them do that, and then I'll connect you with my Southern California rep who does 2 events, the same thing. Ollie Chilton is going to be there.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, so you'll get there. I just wanted to see how it runs first on a smaller scale. Those 25 tickets were sold in 15 minutes. So if this successful program, we'll just continue it in a broader scale.
Okay, and Dan, you get it in down here, and I'll do everything I can to try to help you guys push it into the Total Wines and some of the smaller stores.
Yeah, that's fine. I can assure you.
And Single Cask Nation, we need that here.
It's coming. I can assure you it's coming. It's coming.
Thank you. Well, we don't want to turn it into IMPEX meeting, but Ted, thank you again very much for all. Yes.
So I got one more question for you. This is more for the family. All right. Even though I was told not to ask this, I'm going to ask it anyway. So let's say the phone rings, right? And it's the cops. And they say, hey, man, Sam Filmus was arrested. What do you think he's arrested for?
Well, I don't know if they're going to guess even what I was arrested for, but they would say, hell with him.
Maybe I'll come up with a better answer if I had some time, but I would say probably breaking up a fight, kind of getting involved, but with good intentions, trying to help, but then
I think it
carried
will be
away.
end of the world if the semi-semester.
There you go. That's a better
pretty
answer.
much.
So that's the political answer. Okay, you can give us a real answer here.
I don't know. He's really by the books. Like, I don't know. Can you come back to us? We'll think about it.
Sure, you got my email. Sure.
She doesn't want to say that in front of me. That's the thing. Okay, I got it. Being politically correct.
All right.
Yeah, you're ripping the tags off the pillows.
Yeah, there you go. Very malicious.